What you're about to hear is a recording made by John Lennon in 1975. Back then, the city was going through a financial crisis and things were looking very bleak. And the DJ from WNEW-FM named Vince Scelsa was planning on putting together a program featuring various celebrities and artists talking about New York City. Basically a program to cheer the city up during the holidays. And some questions were sent over to John Lennon since he was in one of his hibernation periods at the time. And he read the questions and answered them and sent the tape back. The show subsequently was never aired, never produced, and John's tape was never heard. So if you just put this into the context of it being 1975, let's go back to the Dakota and listen to John Lennon.
Dr. Winston No Boogie, testing this here. Sunny. It seems to slow down when you move it round. Does it? Is this all right? So, when I first got to New York as a Beatle, okay. So, the first thing, we didn't really get a feel for the city. Yes, in fact, we did. Because of it was mad at the airport, and it was mad in the cars coming from the airport and hearing our music on all the stations, no doubt yours included, and kids in cars waving with braces on their teeth, wearing Bermuda shorts. And New York is America to most foreigners, because that's the picture they always show of that skyline, right? So there it was, the real thing. And it was wonderful. Now, second part is, as a citizen of the world, a human being, etc., of the world, what distinguishes New York from anywhere else? Well, the main thing about New York is that there's so many different races living here. And most people outside of New York don't understand that. In fact, half of them living in New York don't understand that. But that's the whole point of New York. Otherwise, it would be just like somewhere else. And that's what distinguishes New York from other cities. Could you talk a bit about New York's role in turning Beatle John Lennon into human being John Lennon? Well, no, I couldn't, because New York didn't turn me into a human being. I've always been a human being and will continue to do so. What were your some early experiences walking the streets during the sometime New York City period? Well, you see, New York to me was Yoko's stomping ground. So it was she that sort of spent many long hours telling me how wonderful New York used to be and how she used to live in the village, and she had an apartment here and an apartment there and a loft here, you know, till I was almost sick of it. But she finally walked me around the village in the early 70s, and although it wasn't quite like it was when she'd been living there in the early 60s, it still retained a certain facade of friendliness. So we moved in there and enjoyed ourselves. And she showed me the city, really. And it turned out to be beautiful on walking level. And I hadn't walked in a city for years. I'd done a little walking in London, but not much. Now, here's the next little bit. Does the city give you any special inspiration to create? What rhythms ended? No, actually, it makes me want not to create because it wears me out. It's enough just to sit around in this city. What rhythms, energies, tensions, can you plug into any as a base for music? All my music is done in my head, and I could actually be living in Venezuela, I guess, but it's just for my psychic well-being I'm living here, I think. Actually, when I write, I just write in a cocoon, you know, and I forget if I'm in New York or I'm in London or in an aeroplane, you know. If I'm really working, it's after you're working that New York is beautiful. It's when you're not working that it's great. You know, that when you come out of your cocoon, there's all this wonderful madness to play with and look at. Now, on to the next bit. In a new non-musical vein, what other aspects of the city turn you on? Can you partake fully of New York's diverse offering? Well, I mean, we pretty much answered that. I mean, New York has everything that everywhere else has, only more, and it's nearer. And you can dial it on the phone, which is, I'm one of the laziest beings on earth, and Yoko isn't exactly a hard worker herself. I mean, we work at what we want to work at. And as I sit here now talking to this tape, I'm waiting for Dial-a-Frog to deliver some food. Any feelings about the current fiscal problems? Do these problems affect you? Will they, if and when things get worse? Well, I think it's a lot of political garbage, the usual thing. And there's probably been a fiscal crisis for the last 200 years, but nobody mentioned it before. And it's the new in thing to do is to hang out the washing, so they're hanging it out. And apart from people getting hungry or being out of work, it's a lot of hogwash. Is your new child a New York baby? Well, of course it's a New York baby, because it was born in New York Hospital. Do you think he will grow up here? He'll probably grow up here, but even New Yorkers get a bit narrow-minded about New York, so that's including myself, you know. So I think it'd be good we both think it'd be good for him to see a little of the rest of the world and have half and half, you know. Okay, do you ever feel threatened, do you ever feel threatened, afraid, lonely here? Does the city ever swallow you up? Well, I feel threatened, afraid, and lonely everywhere, so that's nothing new, all right? So it's a nice place to be frightened in, New York, one of my favorite places to be scared in, because there's always a friendly channel on the TV to turn to that's going to make you feel less alone. Whereas, as Madeline Kahn said on some Johnny Carson show, when she was in London, she got so terrified because the TV went off and there was no food room service and there was no heat, and she was terrified, and she said, why didn't they warn us that Europe's like that? Well, of course they're not going to warn you, because otherwise you won't go over and spend your dollars, will you? Now that the court problems have been so favorably resolved and Yoko and the child are doing well, will you still spend as much time here? Are you a New Yorker? Well, if living here for 4 or 5 years makes me a New Yorker, I am a New Yorker. Yoko was a New Yorker before, so she always was a New Yorker. So, you know, I don't want to get too nationalistic about New York. It's the best place I can think of to live, but everywhere's somewhere. And the court problem isn't over, but so far so good, okay? I have a few cab driver stories, but there's none that with a tagline to talk about, you know, because some of them know who I am and some of them don't. I like the ones that don't know who I am and tell me their life story about being in the war. They just think I'm some Englishman in the cab. And I've had a few of them that have told me their whole life story. And I've been in strange cabs with carpets and seats and smelt like the guy was living in it, you know. And I get a lot of free rides from younger drivers, which is always, not the free thing isn't the good thing, but just the fact that they sort of give it me in exchange for the music, which is nice, seeing as they paid for the music anyway. So those are the kind of things. I get on very well with cab drivers. But like Don Juan, that journey to Don Juan, or whatever the hell it's called, I have to pick just the right cab, otherwise it's all hell. Now, are there favorite songs of yours that are closely related to the experience and emotion of the city besides the obvious ones? The only one I know is New York, New York, and I don't know any other songs about New York. And I guess I've been here so long now, without leaving it because of my immigration thing, or without leaving America. So I'm going to get emotional about New York when I'm away from it more than actually being here. I mean, I do get emotional, you know, it looks beautiful. Every night it looks beautiful. And apart from that, it's wonderful. Songs, I don't know any. Since the show will be aired during the holiday season, do you have any special messages or thoughts for New York and its people? Yeah, Hi, New Yorkers. Isn't it great to be here? Okay, I hope that suits you, Vin. Oh, Vinny. Vin Selska. I can't say your name very well. Okay, and all the best to New York from John, Yoko, and Sean. And holiday greetings to all jolly listeners. Yes, over and out. I hope this is fine for you, gang. And happy Christmas to all of you. Bye-bye.